Okay, so we've ended the last session talking about some things I think are so significant about the shepherds and Migdal Eder and the swaddling clothes and stuff really significant there in the book of Genesis. We're going to jump ahead to Joseph in Genesis 37 through 50. Now, Genesis 37 through 50, if you've never read it, just sit down and read it. If you've never done that, please do it. It's one of my just absolutely favorite stories in the Bible, and it flows so well. It's a good story. I mean, it's not it's not like reading through the first part of Chronicles or something where it's everybody you reading every bit of sacrifice or the genealogy or something. This is just a good storyline, and we get there in Genesis 37, and Joseph is 17 years old. Now Joseph has been around. They've moved back to the land. They're back in Canaan. The family and the boys, Dad and the boys are all back in Canaan, and they've set up shop there. And Joseph's, cares for the sheep, and he's 17 years old. Well, he was pasturing a flock. It says in 37 chapter 37 verse 2. Joseph, when 17 years old of age, was pasturing the flock with his brothers while he was still a youth, along with the sons of etc. etc. And it says that Israel loved Joseph more than all of his sons. Here we go again. There's some favoritism, and that's throughout the scriptures, and it's not covered. He gives him a brightly colored tunic, and so Joseph is kind of designated. There's the daddy's boy that's got all the nice clothes and stuff, and well, the other guys, the brothers, saw that Joseph was loved more than they were. And so Joseph then has a dream, and this is a significant thing. And dreams are real significant all throughout the Bible. There's so many things regarding dreams. God has actually revealed himself to mankind through the scriptures, but a lot of the scriptures were through dreams or visions. And so God has revealed himself in a lot of ways like this. And at this time, Joseph has a dream, and he has a couple of dreams, and he's real excited about them. He has a dream where there's these sheaves of, grain, and they're, says, behold, we were binding sheaves in the field, and lo, my sheaf rose up and stood erect. And behold, your sheaves gathered around and bowed down to my sheaf. It's in verse 7 of chapter 37. So he has a dream of these sheaves, and the other sheaves, which they all know represent the other brothers, they're bowing down to Joseph. Now, he's real excited about this. The brothers, not so much. Then says his brothers said to him, are you actually going to reign over us? Or are you really going to rule over us? So they hated him even more for his dreams and for his words. They already hated him because Dad loved him more than he loved them. And now they hate him for the dreams. And see, he says it has another dream. Lo, I have still had another dream. Behold, the sun and the moon and the 11 stars were bowing down to me. This is great. So mom and dad, I guess this is stepmom, because his mom died at the birth of Benjamin. But stepmom and dad, one of the moms and dad, will be bowing down to him. And he related it to his father and to his brothers. Well, what a wonderful time. I imagine he came in pretty excited. Hey, guys, you know what? You're all going to bow down. I'm going to rule over you. Picture a 17-year-old, some 17-year-old Just picture him for a minute and just think of him coming to announce to you, hey, guess what? You're going to bow down to me. You're going to have to serve me. Isn't that wonderful? And so related to his father and his brothers, his father rebuked him and said to him, what is this dream that you've had? Shall I and your mother and your brothers actually come to bow ourselves down before you to the ground? And his brothers were jealous of him, but his father kept the saying in mind. So we see a little difference here in how Israel relates to this story as to the brothers. Well, Israel kept it in mind because he's like, okay, this seems significant. I don't like it. Like, he rebuked him for, me and my wife and your brothers are all going to bow down to you, you little punk, and so, and it's like that thing, and they hated him even more. So the brothers come up with an idea, and they decide they're going to kill little brother Joseph because they're really jealous here. But they go through tug of war there, and they say, well, let's not kill him. They throw him in a pit, then they're going to sell him. And they end up selling him to the Ishmaelites. You remember Ishmael in this whole story? They sell him to Ishmaelites. Ishmael was the other son, not the line of Isaac and Israel, but the son Ishmael and his descendants, which become the Arab peoples for the most part. And we've got the Jewish people. So we've got this separation here. So one of the worst things you could do is probably be sold to your distant cousins, that hate you, who your father had deceived. Your grandfather had begotten the promise instead of their grandfather. So anyway, he's sold into these, and he goes down into Egypt, and he's sold for just some little bit of money. What happens is the brothers take the brightly colored tunic, the nice clothes, and they take him back to dad, and they covered it with some blood from some animal, and say, "Look, your son has been devoured." And so at this point, Israel thinks that Joseph is dead. And so it's a key moment in this whole scenario as we're going through the end of the book of Genesis. Israel thinks Joseph is dead. Joseph has actually been taken captive, goes down to Egypt, serves in a Potiphar's house, gets accused of attempted rape. Okay? Here, now, Joseph is just the most devoted man to God. He's pleasing to God. It says God even prospers him later when he's in prison. Well, how are you prospering in prison? But he's found favor. He finds favor with God and men and everything he does. And he's just really an upright man. And Potiphar's wife was trying to get him to commit adultery with her, and he was resisting. And finally, she grabbed his cloak, and he ran out of the house. And she had it in her hand and says, "Here, look, this slave tried to mess with me." And so Joseph gets thrown into prison unjustly for attempted rape, and he didn't do anything. He was just trying to get out of the house. So he's in there serving a sentence in prison, not knowing if he'd ever get out. Well, dreams come into play again here. There's a couple guys in prison, been thrown down there by Pharaoh. One is Pharaoh's cupbearer, who brings his cup to him with his wine, and the other is the baker. And the cupbearer has his dream and brings it to Joseph, and Joseph interprets it and says, "Well, in 3 days, you're going to be restored to your place. You're going to serve the king. You're going to serve Pharaoh again." And so the baker hears it, and he had a dream too, so he brings his dream to him thinking, "Oh, that was good. I think I'll try this." And he tells his dream, says, "Oh, in 3 days, you're going to lose your head. You're going to be killed, because of what you've done." And so when these two guys are leaving, Joseph says to the cupbearer, says, "Now I want you to remember me and tell my story to Pharaoh and whatever, and maybe get me out of this place." Well, it says when the cupbearer got restored his position, he forgot about Joseph. Okay, so crucial part in this whole scenario is Joseph's forgotten about. But this whole thing about dreams is just really important in this whole scenario. So Joseph remains in prison. And it says during that time that he prospers, that whatever he did, he became the head of all the prisoners, kind of the head prisoner. He's the chief prisoner. And, but he is finding favor with God. There's still this favor that rests upon his life, even when he's in prison. He's got no idea what's going to happen here. Well, it finally comes about that Pharaoh has some dreams. And the cupbearer remembers, hey, there was this guy in prison when I had a dream, and the baker had a dream. He interpreted for us. This guy knows how to interpret dreams. How about if I get him and he tells you what your dream's all about? So it's a real interesting scenario that we get here at this point, is that this whole thing with dreams are so intricately wound in the whole story of the Bible. In fact, we get to the New Testament, we find Joseph of the New Testament was a dreamer and that kind of thing too. In fact, when we look at it, we find out that Jesus' name was actually referred or given to Joseph in a dream, which is kind of a funny scenario. Is that what would it be like to wake up in the morning and say, what was that name again? So anyway, remember your dreams. I tell people, write your dreams down. Some of them are going to be significant. I don't do what I tell people to do, but you should write your dreams down and keep track of those. But anyway, we'll jump ahead and look at something here, the rest of the book in just a minute.